The Monastery of Veruela is 3 kilometers from Trasmoz. You can drive there in 5 minutes or walk in 40, along a dirt track that descends through almond orchards and garnacha vineyards freshly harvested. I walked. I needed to think. The morning was cold and clean, that Oregonese cold that is unlike anywhere else, a dry cold that cuts your face but clears your head like a double espresso. The Moncayo was to my right, enormous, its summit wrapped in a cloud that seemed placed there on purpose. To my left, the Ebro steppe stretched until it dissolved into a yellowish haze. 2 landscapes that should not exist side by side, Atlantic mountain and Mediterranean desert, separated by 3 kilometers of vineyards. I had not slept well. The dream about my mother had left a strange taste, like when you wake from a nap at the wrong hour and do not know which century you are in. I had not dreamed of her since I was 18. I had made a conscious effort not to, the same effort I had made not to think about her, not to speak of her, not to visit her grave. My mother died when I was 14. A stroke. No warning, no symptoms, no time to say goodbye. On a Tuesday morning she was making me breakfast, and by Tuesday afternoon she was gone. Just like that. Like a door closing without a slam. After her death, I built an entire life around the idea that things have explanations. That the world is mechanical, comprehensible, dismantleable. That no door closes without someone pushing it. My books are that, proof that behind every mystery there is a mechanism. Plumbing, not ghosts. Fraud, not curses. Physics, not metaphysics. It is easier to live that way. It is easier when everything has an explanation. Because if something does not, if there are doors that close on their own, if there are people who vanish without reason, if there are things that happen without anyone pushing them, then my mother's death was not a biological accident. It was something else. And that something else could mean she is somewhere. And if she is somewhere, it means I did not go looking for her. I did not go looking for her. In 24 years, I have not visited her grave once. But I am digressing. This is a book about Trasmoz, not about me. I reached Veruela. The Monastery of Santa Maria de Veruela is one of those constructions that force you to stop and reconsider your scale in the world. Founded in 1145, the first Cistercian monastery of Aragon. A 16th century defensive wall surrounds it entirely, 6 meters high, with semicircular turrets and battlements, as if the monks needed protection not only from sinners but from something more concrete. The entrance is a square tower flanked by 2 cylindrical ones. You pass beneath and step into another century. The Gothic cloister receives you with pointed arches and ribbed vaults that seem designed so that the light enters exactly as God commands, oblique, cold, with the solemnity of something that has never laughed. The church is a basilica of 3 naves with cruciform pillars that rise until they disappear into the gloom of the ceiling. The candles were burning even at 10 in the morning, casting long shadows over the floor slabs. I had come to see Bécquer's cell. Or rather the wing of the monastery where he lived between December 1863 and the summer of 1864, treating his tuberculosis. The guest house had been open since the monks were expelled in 1835, and Bécquer and his brother Valeriano had settled there as lodgers, Gustavo writing, Valeriano painting, both of them coughing. The monastery's librarian, a small man, bald, with rimless glasses and the discreet enthusiasm of someone who has devoted his life to things that interest very few people, let me access the historical archives room. Dark wooden shelves, cardboard folders, the universal smell of archives, old paper, controlled humidity, and time. What I was looking for was a copy of the Carter's Des mi Celda, Letters from My Cell, which, according to the catalogue, had been held at the monastery since the 19th century. Not a first edition, those are in Madrid. But an early copy that Bécquer had supposedly left at Veruela on departing, with handwritten annotations. I found it on the 3rd shelf, inside an unlabeled cardboard box. A volume bound in brown leather, cracked spine, yellowing pages with that soft feel paper gets after a century and a half of breathing. On the first page, in faded brown ink, a dedication, para los que vengan después, for those who come after, and below, 3 initials, those of Gustavo Adolfo Bécquer. Gustavo Adolfo Bécquer. His initials. My hands trembled. Not because it was a valuable piece, which it was, but because those 3 letters had been written by a man who was coughing blood in a cell 3 kilometers from Trasmoz, watching the Moncayo through his window, knowing he was dying. And he had left this book here. For those who came after. I opened letter 6. The one about Tia Casca. And in the margin, in tiny, cramped handwriting, different from the dedication, more urgent, written in haste or in fear, there was an annotation. She was not a witch. She was the one who spoke to them. I spent 3 hours in that room. The librarian brought me coffee every 40 minutes with the precision of a Swiss clock and the discretion of a cat. Bécquer's marginal annotations were in letters 6, 7, and 8, the 3 that deal with Trasmoz. In the rest of the book, nothing. Only in Trasmoz. In letter 7, the legend of the castle of Trasmoz built in a single night by the sorcerer Mutamin, another marginal note. The sounds do not come from the stones. They come from the air, as if the air were full of people. And between the pages of letter 8, the tale of Dorothea and her pact with the witches, a loose sheet. Folded in 4. Paper thicker than the books, with ragged edges, as if torn from a notebook. The handwriting was Bécquer's, the same script as the dedication, but here without the elegance of someone writing for posterity. Here he was writing for himself. It was a list. 47 names. Surnames and given names. No dates, no explanation, no context. Just a column of names written one below the other, with the regularity of a census or an inventory. I copied them all into my notebook. I do not know why, researcher's instinct. When you have spent 10 years dismantling legends, you learn that documents do not lie. People do, institutions do, popular memory certainly does, but a document that nobody expected to be found tells the truth by accident. And below the list, a final annotation. The handwriting here was different, trembling, as if written with a fever or with frozen hands. It is not a legend. I hear them. And they hear me. And there was something else. Not in the book but beneath it, in the same cardboard box, among loose papers and monastery receipts. A letter. Folded in 3. No envelope. No visible addressee. But the handwriting was Bécquer's. I recognized it instantly, and the salutation read, Querido Valeriano. Dear Valeriano. His brother. The painter. The one he wrote everything to. The letter was brief. It bore no date. It said, I shall not return to Trasmoz. Not because I fear what is there, but because if I return, I shall not want to leave. The dead of that village are better company than the living of Madrid. And that, brother, should terrify me. But it does not terrify me. And that is what terrifies me. I read the letter 3 times. Bécquer had written those words knowing he was dying. A man in his early 30s, with tuberculosis, coughing blood in a monastery cell, and what terrified him was not death. It was that Trasmoz made death desirable. I closed the book. I returned the letter to the box. I sat staring at the wall of the archives room. The monastery stone was 800 years old. Bécquer's ink, 160. And the words he had written resonated as if he had written them that morning. I found him in the cloister, sitting on a stone bench with an open briefcase on his knees and a mobile phone pressed to his ear. He was speaking Italian. Not tourist Italian, fluent, ecclesiastical Italian, peppered with Latin terms I recognized because my mother used to take me to Mass when I was small. Before she stopped taking me anywhere. He hung up. He saw me. He smiled with the automatic courtesy of someone accustomed to receiving visitors. Journalist? He asked. Writer. Vega Los Tal. I'm writing about the excommunication of Trasmoz. The smile became more genuine. He stood tall, thin, grey hair neatly trimmed, impeccable black cassock, long hands of a pianist or a surgeon. 60-something years carried with the discipline of a man who believes the body is a temple and must be kept clean. Fermín Azcona, canon of the Cathedral of Tarazona. I have spent 20 years trying to get them UN excommunicated. We sat in the cloister. Fermín spoke for an hour. He had the eloquence of a preacher and the passion of a lawyer. Every argument was constructed, every figure was precise, every pause was rhetorical. He told me the history of the excommunication, 1255, a dispute with the monks over firewood rites on the Monte de la Mata, and of the curse, 1511, Pope Julius II authorizing the abbot of Veruela to curse the village with Psalm 108. He told me that the excommunication prevented the villagers from receiving the sacraments. That technically, for 770 years, no birth had been baptized with full canonical validity, no marriage had been entirely legitimate, no dead person had received last rites with the full blessing of the Church. 770 years, he said, and the number weighed on his tongue. Not even God punishes for that long. I asked him why he cared so much, and the eloquence drained from him. He lowered his gaze. He looked at his hands. My sister Clara moved to Trasmoz 25 years ago. She married a cattle farmer from here. She died at 40. An aneurysm. Pause. They buried her without full last rites. Technically, my sister died outside the grace of God. Not because she had sinned, because she lived in the wrong village. He looked at me with the eyes of someone who has spent 2 decades pushing a stone uphill. The Vatican has agreed to study the case. I was in Rome last week. We are waiting for the answer. If they say yes, the reconciliation ceremony would take place here, at Veruela, on the 1st of November. All Saints' Day. A symbolic gesture, the Church reconciling with Trasmoz on the day we honor the dead. It was perfect for my book. The quixotic canon, the Vatican bureaucracy, the dead sister, the reconciliation ceremony. An entire chapter. I shook his hand. We agreed to speak again. I left. Before leaving the monastery, I went back to the archives room. I wanted to photograph Bécquer's annotations. The librarian left me alone with the book, the blind trust of someone who has seen too many researchers to worry about one more. I opened the book to letter 6. I photographed the annotation about Tia Casca. I turned to letter 7. I photographed the one about the air full of people. I took out the list of names. I photographed it entirely, both sides of the sheet. I paused at the last annotation, the one in trembling handwriting. It is not a legend. I hear them. And they hear me. I photographed it. And then I noticed something. Something I know from archives, that sensation of someone watching what you are reading. Someone behind you, leaning over your shoulder, breathing on the back of your neck. I have felt it in the National Library, in the archive of Simancas, in the municipal newspaper archive of Madrid. It is always a draft, a fellow reader, a shadow. It always has an explanation. I looked behind me. Nobody. The room was empty. The door was closed. The silence was of the kind that only exists in monasteries, not an absence of sound, but the presence of something older than sound. I looked at the book again. The page had turned. It was now at letter 9, the last one, which describes the history of the monastery itself. I had not touched it. My hands were in my lap. Nobody had come in. The page had turned by itself. Or someone had turned it. I returned the book to its box. I left the room. I crossed the cloister without looking back, with the quick stride of someone who is not fleeing but does not want to stay either. That night, in the house in Trasmoz, I searched for the 47 names from Bécquer's list in the civil registry of Aragon. They all appeared. They were all residents of Trasmoz. They were all dead. The last one had died 3 months before Bécquer arrived at Veruela. as if someone had given him the updated list. I closed the laptop. I looked at the 2 closed doors in the corridor. The one on the right was still warm. The one in the center, cold. And between the 2, or behind them, or on the other side of them, the silence of Trasmoz breathed with the patience of something that has been waiting for centuries for someone to ask the right questions. I was not asking them yet. But I was beginning to suspect that the right questions were not the ones I had brought from Madrid.